welcome again to the Executive Room podcast, where we delve deep into the minds of remarkable executives who have shaped the business world with their ideas and actions. I'm your host, Kimberly Afonso, CEO and founder of the K Consulting Group, and today it's an honor to have Sean Lee with us. Sean Lee is the CEO of OpenDrives, where he's leading the company's evolution from Hollywood's go-to storage workflows to a broader data services platform. A service-oriented, people-first leader, Sean believes revenue is a lagging indicator of trust, culture, and relentless improvement. His 25-plus year path spans NBC Universal, Illumination Entertainment, and AV Squad. Initially an OpenDrives customer, he later joined as employee number 7 to build engineering, product, and operations, but before becoming CEO. Sean champions a 100% customer-driven roadmap and authentic leadership that empowers teams to thrive. So let's get started. Sean, I was really looking forward to recording this episode with you. Your career path is super unique and inspiring. You started at NBC Universal when you were just 19. You moved through technology, leadership. You eventually joined OpenDrives as employee number 7. So today you're steering the company through a major transformation. Can you share a little bit more about your really unique career journey and how it led you to where you are today?
Thank you so much for having me, Kimberly. I'm really excited to be here today, and thank you for the amazing introduction. I don't think I could have said it in the words that you used, but really phenomenal. Thank you so much. So my journey to where it is that I am today started, really humbly as a tech at NBC Universal. And back those 16 years that I spent at Universal, I have to say, I never actually believed that I had a career. I had a job. My dad passed away when I was very young and needed to work to help support the family. And that's what I did. And just doing a job. And after 16 years of being there, I was offered an opportunity to become the head of IT for Illumination Entertainment, really amazing company that brought minions to the world, and was there at the very beginning of that, fortunately through a contact that I had who was a client that I serviced at Universal. And when I had that opportunity, it really transformed things for me. I remember getting that job and believing like, oh my God, like I actually might have a career now. And that was, I discovered through my relationships that I had built at Universal over the years in supporting those customers. The COO that was at Illumination essentially invited me over to just check out what they had. And I did it as a favor to a friend. And long story short is, they elected to in-house somebody, and they called me and they say, we would love for you to be that person. And to be honest, when I was offered the position, I looked over my shoulder and was like, are you sure you have the right guy? And that journey through Illumination, I would say, was really the start of my career path. And then really fortunate enough to work for some additional amazing companies along the way, culminating at OpenDrives, where I was a customer before, had bought the product. I knew the founder. And then he asked me, if I was interested in joining the company. And once again, I had the same look over my shoulder. Are you sure? Because Jeff Brew was, had been David Fincher's chief engineer, well-known technologist in our space. And I was so humbled that, a guy like him would ask me to join. And then since then, I've been at the company for now 10 years and joined as a VP of engineering and have held many, many roles within the company from employee number 7 to where it is that we are now.
And have you ever associated with the wording imposter syndrome, Sean? Because it seems like some of the things, you're so qualified, so talented. When we connected before, I can tell you're really humble, you're really dedicated to your teams and to creating a great culture. Earlier in your career, was that something that you resonated with or you felt, or was it something else along the way?
That's a great question. So I've learned along the way that we get what we feel like we deserve, whether that's at work or in relationships or whatever it is that we believe that we can achieve is what comes. And in the early days, when I said at Universal, when I just had the job, the alignment was pretty strong for me then. Hey, this was a job. I was a desktop support person. I had technical skills that matched that. And when I was offered the role at Illumination, I was like super nervous. I was really, really scared. I remember consulting for a long time with a bunch of friends and colleagues in the industry. And they said, oh my God, that's Chris Meledandri's company. Like, he founded Blue Sky and did Rio. Like, if you have a chance to go work with him, you should go do that. And it really took a pretty big leap of faith for me to do that. And that was the first time I connected with this idea and thought of believing in people that believe in you when you don't believe in yourself. So here was this COO that was a Harvard MBA that was asking me, somebody that she's known for a long time, to join their company and head their IT. I was like, I don't believe in myself to do this, but man, like, this person who is obviously very intelligent sees something in me that maybe I don't see. So I'm going to go with that. And I'm going to try to make up for that delta of what I felt insecurity on my end, just through, I was like, I'm just going to pour my life into this and through hard work and diligence, like, try to achieve and meet the expectations that this person has. And there's a ton of imposter syndrome. And so I just kind of, I guess, relied on a lot of the things that I had learned. Like, you hear about things like, dress for the job that you want to have, not for the one that you have, or, fake it till you make it, which I want to transform into, it's not fake it till you make it. It's really practice until you achieve it, is really like what that term means. And the fake it till you make it has a connotation of being something very negative, right? Which feeds into the imposter syndrome piece, which is like, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm just going to fake it. No, we're smart people. We're doing something. We're not just winging it. We have to take some credit for that. The effort that we put in, they say luck is the cross section between preparation and opportunity, right? It feels very lucky, but many people that I talked to over the years that have known me for a long time have said, oh, I'm not surprised at where you are now. I was like, you're not surprised, I am, but they see it, right? They see this thing that you don't see when you're in your head. And then lastly, on the imposter syndrome piece, I'm going to quote Simon Sinek here. And I learned this actually recently. He said, imposter syndrome makes the assumption that you're trying to be somebody else. So if I'm a CEO and I'm trying to be Bill Gates or Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk or somebody like that, you're absolutely going to be an imposter because you're not that person. But if you're just trying to be yourself, you're trying to be the CEO of OpenDrives, then there's no way that you can be an imposter because you're only trying to be yourself. So these types of ideas, coupled with many others, have really helped me overcome some of those challenges. I wouldn't say defeat them because I think that they're always there and will forever be there. But you just get more comfortable with those feelings and those thoughts.
Completely. And I think those are amazing lessons, especially for other CEOs listening, because those aren't always easy things. I think, so many people at the top, being a top executive, there's a lot that you have to handle, carry, lead teams, work on your own leadership, work on your own mindset. There's so much going on that I think it's not always easy to share that openly. So thank you for sharing some of those really key lessons. And how has that influenced your leadership at OpenDrives?
Yeah, in so many ways. And I love that you asked the question because I wanted to add on, we don't always know, right? There's I don't know if this is like how we perceive ourselves or how we think others perceive us. That's like, oh, if you're in the CEO role, you must have all the answers. And to speak to all the CEOs that are listening, and not necessarily even CEOs, like anybody that's in a leadership position, your team is going to look at you and say, hey, what's the answer? What are we supposed to do? And look, nobody has ever been in your position or my position at this time with the challenges that we face, with the resources that we have. And we are figuring it out. We're doing the best of our ability in that moment to make a critical decision. And we can't make it alone. So how it's influenced leadership is really about collaboration. That I've always said, I'm just the experience of one person. And that one experience is unfortunately very myopic. Even as open and as a big thinker as I believe myself to be, it's still through the lens of my own experience. And we are so much better as individuals and as teams and as a company when we consult with our resources, when we look to our team members, when we empower our team members to say, hey, what do you think about this? Right? What is your feedback on this? And to create that environment where it's safe for people to express their thoughts at every level. Hey, this is what I think. Now, it does come with its own challenges, right? That there's, and we've seen this, I've seen this at my company, is a over deliberation of something, because we're trying to get everybody's input and we got a safe space and everybody gets to say what they feel. And then when you do something that is against what that person feels or thinks is the right path, they're like, oh, you didn't listen to me. Why are we doing this? There must also be coupled an idea of like disagreeing and committing, right? That when we decide, hey, this is the path, we have to make a decision. We have to take action because time is always against us. That you have also that environment of ensuring that you can all move forward, even when you don't all completely agree. And it doesn't have to be me. Like, it doesn't have to be like whatever the CEO says. It should be something that everybody like agrees to. Not everybody, but the majority of people like agree to, you know, and can communicate why. And I'll add one last thing and we can move on is it's really important to be able to say as a leader, because everybody mimics your leaders, is to say, I don't know as a leader, or to say, I got it wrong. What I said was wrong, or what I did was a mistake. And this is what we know now, and we need to course correct. And what that does is it creates a lot of safety, psychological safety for people to be able to communicate and own decisions and be empowered because they see others doing it.
Incredible insights. And what I loved about that especially was the talk of psychological safety. That's something I think in the past 5-10 years as well, there's been so much more awareness about creating that in organizations. And it's something that really cannot be taken for granted. It's so important. So, talking a little bit more now about OpenDrives, tell us what makes it unique, what makes your culture unique. And also, I know there's been some really exciting things going on, a lot of, new launches. Tell us a little bit about that as well.
Awesome. So throughout the growth and changes of the company, like over 10 years now, I remember in the early days, we were a very small team and we were like super ambitious and we're like, oh, we're going to be a unicorn and we're going to exit this company in 3 years, and you push. And I remember along the way, there was some realization that I think somebody on our engineering team had said, they're like, we might be focused on the wrong goal. If we're focused on exiting the company, to get this like payday, that we might not be developing the right product or servicing our customers in the best way, because we're focused on getting out. We're focused on ending this thing versus perpetuating it. And I remember this in the early days, and we began to shift some of what we were doing and how we were doing it. We had already been a customer-driven roadmap prior to starting the company, because Jeff Brew, who founded OpenDrives, was David Fincher's chief engineer and had built OpenDrives for David. on a production to solve a specific problem that they were having and realized that the industry needed this solution. And so we doubled down on that in our ensuring that as we were no longer the filmmakers in those workflows, that we continued to get feedback in order to build the products appropriately to what our customers needed. And then to provide the support, that wasn't transactional. Like even to this day, we don't outsource any of our support. Every customer facing person is somebody that's like in-house to us because we want to ensure that experience that the customer has. Now with these things, I've realized over the years, the growth is much slower, but I think that the growth is like much more sustainable. Now, with that being said, then you also need to ensure that you've got a board and you've got investors that are going to support you through that journey, to ensure that you can stick to the culture and morals and ethics, the values and virtues of your company. And so some of those that we have are, being OpenDrives. We're open, persistent, empathetic, and nimble. That forms open. And that's really the core of our culture is to ensure that we are open and effective and persistent, in everything it is that we do. And that's taking people first, whether it's internally with one another as we, work towards a goal as a team, as we interact with what we call tech alliance partners, because we are one piece of a big puzzle of a customer's workflow to ensure that those partnerships that we have with Adobe and Blackmagic and, other companies, technology companies, that we're collaborative with them and we treat them as people, and then our customers, obviously, in ensuring that we're not transactional in what it is that we do, that we take the time, we listen to them. We don't necessarily do what they say, but we listen actively and we provide solutions and we solve the problems that they have rather than just dealing with the symptoms. And sometimes you need to push back a little bit and say, hey, I know that you're asking for this, but really this is the better path. All of this requires more effort, more intentionality, more communication, more time, but builds stronger relationships. And so that's really the core of our culture. I have, if you'd like to hear some additional stories about how that then manifests, in day-to-day activities, I have some stories to tell.
Oh yeah, please do.
So I'll tell two stories. One is we answered an RFP for a customer once. And in this RFP, the numbers in the RFP, performance numbers, were numbers that we couldn't achieve. And we're like, what do we do? These numbers are astronomical. And so we decided as a team to withdraw from the RFP. So we went back to the customer and said, hey, we thank you so much for considering us. We can't meet these performance metrics, so we wouldn't be doing you a service and saying that we could. So we're removing ourselves from the RFP. And if you find somebody who can do this, we would love to know who they are because they've got phenomenal technology. Several months later, we get a call back saying, hey, thank you so much for responding to the RFP. We know that you guys declined, but we're offering you the win because we knew that this wasn't really possible. It's something that we want to achieve. And everybody else said that they could do it. And when they started diving into how those people were going to do it, they realized that none of those companies could do it either. And they said, because you were honest and upfront about it, we want to understand what you can do. And we'd like to work with you on what you can achieve with us. So I think that is a awesome testimonial about putting the customer first, over your own needs, to say, hey, this is going to be a bad show. We'd rather not show than have a poor showing and then create a bad relationship and a poor reputation in the industry. So that's a great story. The other one is, and I can't mention the name of the company, and this has actually happened twice with two different companies where we had some failures. We had some challenges with our product. And this was in the earlier days. And I remember being on these calls for, 10 hours a day, up late at night, working with our support teams and communicating with the customer. And it was rough. It was really, really stressful. And at the end of the problem, the customer came back and we had these like debrief meetings, and they said, that was horrible. We never want that to happen ever again. But we've never seen a company respond to a failure like that, a problem like that, in the way that your company did. You guys took ownership, you were transparent, you communicated, openly and honestly about the things that you knew and the things that you didn't. And you now have customers for life. Like, we love you guys, and we know that technology will fail at some point. It's how you responded in light of those failures that really show your true character as a company. And so what we know is technology will fail, and if it ever fails again, we want you in our corner. So those are two like really amazing stories, I think, that highlight, how a culture like ours manifests itself into longer, more sustainable relationships with customers. We have extremely low churn in our customer base. That's the result.
I love that. And what's really interesting, Sean, I didn't ask you that to plan for it to be like this, but really interesting. My business, the K Consulting Group, is exactly the same regarding honesty, transparency, integrity, values. I don't usually talk about it here on the podcast, but same thing. Hardly any customer turnover. When there's an issue, very upfront about what can and cannot be done. And I've seen over the years the same exact thing that you've mentioned. Sometimes things take a little bit longer because you are with the customer, you are with the client, you do explain a lot of things that other companies won't. But then those customers stay with you and they become partners for life. So that's something that I also have 100% seen, and also can relate to the growth part of, my company now 8 years, we are growing year over year. We don't grow like crazy because, we are, but at the same time, it is really sustainable because every growth, it's not growth and then losing half of the customers. It's like growth and then the customer stays, growth and then the customer stays. So it's really interesting because I've had the same exact experience. So I really liked you sharing that, and I wanted to add to that because we're in different industries, but it's something I've seen as well. And what I'd love to ask you is, some people listening they want to look for private equity. They maybe do want to sell their companies in the future. And it is a different route. You mentioned it yourself. You went through at the beginning thinking about, are we building this to sell it, or how are we building it? How do you think companies like that can infuse some of this culture still, even if their goal is rapid growth and is, potentially selling in the future? Or do you not think that that's possible? What would you say to those listeners who maybe have a company where they do want to exit in 5 years, or, get more revenue really, really quickly?
Yeah. So I want to start by saying everything it is that I said, by no means should anybody out there go and try to mimic and copy what you or I are doing, or anybody else on any podcast, right? You have to be mindful and intentional about what it is that you're doing. So with that being said, translating into your question is, why do you want to exit in 5 years? I'm not saying you shouldn't, but why, right? Why do you want to exit in 5 years? What is it going to take to exit in 5 years? What does that trajectory look like, right? What milestones and goals do you have to achieve, and what timeframes? Are you willing to commit to that path and doing what it takes to then achieve those things? And if those things are in alignment with who it is that you are and what your company stands for, awesome and amazing. But there's always, everything comes at a cost, I guess is what I want to say. Are you willing to pay the toll to get what it is that you want to achieve? So if you want to do that, amazing. You may not be able to do the slow growth thing and the spending all the time with customers, Maybe the strategy is, developing really unique IP, because that's going to be the exit, is you're going to be acquired. The strategy is to be acquired for your IP. Then really focus a lot on development of the IP. Have a few lighthouse customers that you can go out to and do, work with them to solve the problem, deliver some amazing PR on it, and generate a wave and exit. Maybe your exit strategy is a multiplier of revenue, right? That you're taking some, commoditized solution, but really going to generate amazing customer service and driving, revenue and logo acquisition. And then you want to sell that portfolio of business. There's no magic bullet. There's no formula for this where it's if I do these things, then it's going to lead to an exit of, X millions of dollars in 5 years. There isn't. So you have to make a gamble and a bet. And don't bet on anybody but yourself, right? Yourself. And when I say yourself, I mean your company, your teammates, the leadership team, the company it is, and the individuals that you brought in. You got to bet on that. And you have to be, taking a page out of Ray Dalio, you have to be hyper realistic about that. There needs to be positivity and a vision for something that you can achieve, and it needs to be reaching. But it can't be overreaching and unrealistic for the industry that you're in, the customers that you're selling to, the team and talent that you have, the resources that you have available. You have to have some healthy perspective on that. So I don't know if I answered your question directly. It really is how you and I have maybe chosen to do things, and how our companies have grown and the people that we have in them. It's not for everybody. And all my advice would be, know who you are, know what you have, know what you're trying to achieve, and to really mindfully plot a course for that. And don't do it blindly. And there needs to be kind of regular check-ins on whatever cadence schedule makes sense, quarterly, annually. Maybe the goal has shifted. Maybe your resources and your situation are different. Maybe the industry has changed. Don't just keep your head down and barrel through being I committed to this thing. You need to constantly be aware of the input it is that you're getting and be able to navigate and pivot those changes and make different decisions to say, I know last week we said we were doing this thing, but now we have to do this thing because now we know this, or we know that, or what we hypothesized, we ran a test and that's not true. So I think that as leaders, sometimes it's difficult to pivot like that, to say, oh man, I told the team that this was the right way to go. And now it's not. Maybe going back to what I was saying earlier, you got to really be collaborative with your team. There can't be an authoritarian, unidirectional, I'm making this decision, I'm the CEO, I'm this leader, we're doing this thing, because then that comes with a lot of weight, right? You're going to be less able to be I made a mistake if it was a unilateral decision. But when you're, working with your team and trusting your team and getting the feedback from the experts that are on your team in whatever area, sales, marketing, technology, you're getting that input, then you can go back to that team and say, hey, this is what I see now. Do you guys see this too? What do you think? And then you can collaboratively then make a pivot together as a unified group.
Very well said. And when you were speaking, Sean, the thing that it made me think about is diet. Some people are great vegetarian. Some people are great eating carnivore diet. Some people are great gluten-free and others aren't. And I think it's the same with company culture, what you're building, how you build it, and I think the great thing about listening to any leader, for example, your story, something that always stuck with me years ago was someone said, take what resonates, leave the rest. So, they can take some things from your story and leave the rest. And I'd love now to talk a little bit about vocal leadership and also your story specifically. So on this podcast, we always talk about CEOs who are engaged. It's all about vocal leadership, public persona, how CEOs are speaking online. I know you mentioned you like Simon Sinek. I would love to hear for you to share with the audience two or three people, other CEOs or leaders who you really like their presence. And also, how do you, I saw you have a public presence, that's why I invited you on the show. What advice would you give to other CEOs or executives who want to build their personal brand? How did you build yours, and how did you decide about what to talk about and what not to talk about publicly?
Yeah, so some of the leaders that I admire, Simon Sinek being one of them, um, have all been individuals that have like resonated with me. Meaning, I listened to them. Their message was something that I needed to hear. It was like transformational for me. It's things that I've discussed with maybe other, friends and colleagues, and it resonated with them. So there needs to be some purpose and connection. So Simon Sinek, and when I first discovered him, was really about the why, right? Learning about why. And that probably is like a core thread in who it is that I am as an individual is for better or worse, always wanting to know why. Why are we doing something? Why am I here? What is the purpose? Like, is really important. And so start with him. Brene Brown was a big person for me. Vulnerability, I think, is really, really important. And, one of the things that she tries to communicate and teach is if you are not vulnerable, you actually are unable to experience a whole plethora of emotions and experiences because you're blocking out a part of things. And everything's two sides of a coin. So you have to experience the bad to experience the good, and vice versa. So I think that was very transformational for me to be more comfortable in saying, I don't know. And, we don't have all the answers, and to be more collaborative and open was really important. James Clear and Charles Duhigg, I'll put them kind of together because it's really about habits and how to tactically implement certain things. I can spend a lot of space in the person that I am in philosophical existentialism, like is what I think a lot about in philosophy. But how do you then ground that and take that into action? So those are two people that I think have a good voice. I'm sure that there's a lot of others, just in the tech talk space. Oh, I love Shankar Vedantam, and all of his Hidden Brain podcasts have been like extremely amazing. Love the way that he speaks, how he like hosts his podcast. And then your question went on to say, what advice can I give, and what have I done for me in the public voice and in podcasts? It really comes down to authenticity. Like for me, that for better or worse, I can't be anybody else besides myself. Like one of the problems that I have in doing podcasts is that I really lean heavily on the leadership, philosophy and all the things that we talked about today. I really need to be talking more about our new product launch, and the amazing technology that we have and the problems that we solve for people. And so that's an area that I need to work on, and to build more of a brand, not only in the leadership side, in the entrepreneurship, but in hey, I was on the engineering side, I was a CTO, like I should be able to talk about that too. But, a lot of times we gravitate towards our comfort zones. And sometimes we need to take pause and really think about what it is that we're doing when we gravitate towards that authenticity piece. What areas are we like avoiding that we shouldn't be avoiding? There are definitely some areas that we should be avoiding that we have no business being in. We should have no business talking about, and you shouldn't push into those areas. But there are areas that we have talent in that may be in the shadow of the things that we feel really comfortable in. And so that's hopefully answers your question, and the authenticity piece, but it's not perfect. It's a constant work in progress of, the brand and the voice and what I'm trying to do. And by the way, it's not for me. I never wanted to be, the CEO at OpenDrives. These things came very organically to me. And everything it is that I do is in service of, my team, the company, the investors, my family. I have a very servant leadership type of an approach to things, maybe to a fault at times, that I place others first. But I think that it's important because if you're focused on yourself, you may lose sight in that myopic nature of how we are all like very myopic. We can only see things from our own perspective. So trying to put ourselves in other people's shoes, and to be more empathetic and understand what we're doing, the intention behind why it is that we're doing it, and then what is the ultimate outcome. That this can't be about, Sean Lee. This is Sean Lee representing OpenDrives and, the team of people that is that we have. Because at the end of the day, the companies that we build and the jobs that we have for people really is sustaining an entire community of people, right? Their salaries, it puts food on their table and gets to send their kids to school, and they can participate in their activities. So to think about that as a responsibility, I think is important. It generates and drives intentionality in the right way.
I love that. And I could tell from your presence when I saw your LinkedIn that it's not all about you. It's a lot about servant leadership, about your team, about the things you're building. So I think that really does shine through. And let's end on this, Sean. What would you like the audience to know about OpenDrives? Let's end on what can we share with them about what you're working on, what's next, please share.
Yeah, I'm actually super excited about where we are as a company today. It hasn't been all roses. It's not all roses today. As any one of your listeners knows, it's you're on an ocean of waves, and there are ups and downs. It's not constantly up and to the right as much as we all wish that it was. So we've been around for over 10 years, and we've traditionally delivered a data storage platform for customers focused on ultra high performance workflows in the media entertainment space. So high bandwidth, low latency for creative workflows. So our customers are the major studios, broadcast television. Our recent claims to fame are, doing the men's and women's World Cup and the Super Bowl and NASCAR, to highlight a few. And where we're going is, we've always said that we appear as a data storage company, but that's not really what we are, because Jeff Brew, when he started OpenDrives, wasn't to start a data storage company. It was to alleviate pain that he saw with the creatives who were his friends in his company. And where he just happened to find the problem was bottlenecking throughput at the storage layer. But we've always been, through our entire history, extremely consultative in our approach, as we've talked about on our call today. So where even though we sell a product, it's one piece of a major puzzle, we ensure that we're consultative with our customers that the networking is configured correctly, and the workstations and the applications, and the end user has a good experience. And so I'm proud to announce, you can see it publicly, our new product is called Astraeus. And what Astraeus does is it takes us into data services. And what data services is the ability to bring applications and data closer together. So now we're not just focused on the data piece. We're focused on orchestration of the application, compute and CPU and GPU management, networking management, to enable customers to deploy environments on-prem with the nimbleness and power of the cloud, but with the cost predictability of an on-prem deployment. And this really shows the true DNA of OpenDrives, is that we get to, instead of just touching the data piece and companies looking at us saying like, oh, you're just data storage, that we get to show our true DNA through our new product, and being holistic from end to end, from the application, the compute side, all the way to storage and back and forth and everything in between. It's really an amazing opportunity for us. And I'm excited that we get to share it with the world now. We've been working on it for several years.
Wow, amazing. We will link in the call notes and below everywhere that everyone's listening to your new product and your website and your LinkedIn. And we hope the listeners encourage them to connect with you and learn more about the new launch. And thank you, Sean. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for sharing your amazing leadership lessons. and servant leadership and more about your philosophy of how you run the business. And until next time.
Thank you, Kimberly. It's been a great time.